Hi, friends. So today, taking a break from architecture, I want to talk about an ancient equivalent of a vlog of a house party. So before I show you the vlog of his house parties, I should probably tell you a bit about the host who throws these parties. His name is Han Xizai. He was born in year 902, and he grew up during an interesting period in China, 五代十国, or 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. This period happened after the fall of the Tang Dynasty, and 5 dynasties refers to the succession of short-lived warlord states until the founding of the Song Dynasty in year 960. And 10 kingdoms refers to these kingdoms that ruled different parts of central and southern China until their absorption into the Song Dynasty, the last of which was around year 978. So Han Xizai was a pretty intelligent and scholarly person. Between the years 923 and 926, he obtained the Jingshi degree. This is a very prestigious degree that would have allowed him to hold high posts in the government. But instead of trying to serve the late Tang emperor, he actually fled to the south, to the kingdom of Wuyue in modern-day Zhejiang province. He stayed there until year 937 when Li Bian set up the kingdom of southern Tang and invited him to come to Nanjing to serve as a tutor to Crown Prince Li Jing. Han Xizai served a total of 3 kings in the southern Tang court, and I guess he kind of got tired of politics as he went on. For example, when Li Jing first ascended the throne, Han urged him to launch an expedition to recover the north, but Li Jing ignored him then. When northern Zhou consolidated power, Han Xizai saw that it was already too late, but this time, Li Jing listened to another group of people that includes Han's rival and launched an expedition to the north, which ended up being a huge disaster, leading to the downfall of Li Jing. Li Yu, the last emperor, asked Han Xizai to be his prime minister. But by this time, Han Xizai said nope. He probably thought it's pointless to serve a useless ruler at this point, and he wanted nothing more to do with public affairs. So by today's definition, I guess we can say that Han Xizai decided to retire. And in his years of retirement, he kept open house for bright young men, musicians, singers, and dancing girls. So basically, he partied a lot. And his evening parties eventually became notorious. And the Emperor Li Yu heard about it. So I would imagine that if I was the Emperor Li Yu and I heard about these parties, I would be pretty curious about what kind of parties this guy is throwing. I mean, he refused to be my prime minister. And so one of the story goes that Li Yu sent a detective of some sort, in particular a court painter, whose name was Hongzhong. And Li Yu told him to go to Han's house, observe, and recreate everything he saw there into a painting based on his memory. And that takes me to the vlog of Han Xizai's house parties, which is actually a painting called The Night Revels or The Night Entertainments of Han Xizai. So you might be a little bit confused as to why I am comparing this painting to modern day vlogs, because videos in general are defined by their temporal nature. Whereas when we think about paintings, perhaps coming from a notion developed from the study of Western art dominated by framed easel paintings, we think, okay, well, we see this whole painting at once, so where does the temporal part come from? But actually, this painting is an example of a hand scroll, which is a class of Chinese paintings. And there are a few defining features of this class of paintings, but the one that's most germane to our discussion today is the unrolling process. And this kind of ties in with usual dimensions of hand scrolls, where the length is much, much greater than the height. And the height is small enough so that, it would fit inside your hand. These hand scrolls are not meant to be stretched out to their full length and displayed. They're not meant for the viewer to, see the whole thing at once. Instead, they're kind of made for private viewership. And what's very important is the unrolling process. So these paintings are rolled up when not in use. And when we're viewing a painting, we have to read it from right to left, 1 arm's length at a time. So the painting that I'm showing you today, Night Revels or Night Entertainments of Han Xizai, its dimensions are 28.7 centimeters high by 3.35 meters long. I guess 1 arm length is around, for me, maybe 80, 90 centimeters. So this painting is around 4 arms length. And that makes sense here because this painting is kind of divided into 5 sections or 5 subframes. Let's try to view it the way it was supposed to be viewed, which is 1 arm's length or 1 frame at a time. So the frames in this painting are kind of divided up by the screens. And in each frame, there are some techniques to make us look forward to the next frame. So in this first frame of the painting, we can immediately spot Han Xizai right here. He is quite relaxed. He is sitting and listening to a girl playing the lute. One of the people under the covers to the very left is a musician. We know that because we can see her pipa sticking out over the edge of the bed. We can also notice actually throughout the painting that there are a lot of painting within paintings. For example, here on the backboard of the bed. And actually, this painting within paintings helped people date night revels of Han Xizai. In this first frame, we can also see, the low tables filled with food and wine. Here, we can assume that this guest in the red robe is a very honored guest. The room is very crowded. His guests generally appear, pretty rigid and pretty formal. The room is enclosed by furniture and painted wall panels on all sides. So again, paintings within paintings. And everyone in this frame is paying attention to the girl who's playing pipa. And here in this frame, we see the maid on the left kind of peeping at the party from behind a screen. So here, not only does the screen act as scene division and kind of like stirs our interest to find out now what's behind that screen. And so now we go to that second frame. So here in the second frame, we see less furniture than in the first frame. Han Xizai seems a bit more relaxed. He's now playing the drum. Again, he and his guests are paying attention to a girl who's dancing. This scene then transitions into a bedroom scene. And here we can see it's even more informal. You can see on the adjacent bed that there are quilts that are unfolded. And Han Xizai is surrounded by a bunch of women. So again, now we come across a screen. Going beyond that screen, we come to the next scene where we see this informality being further developed. Han's garment is now unbuttoned. He is enjoying a music performance and the display of feminine beauty. This girl here might be important since of all the women in this girl, she's the only one whose garment is adorned with geese. There's one hypothesis that she might be his daughter. We can see a group of musicians that seem to be providing some background music. All 5 of the ladies providing background music seem to be playing the flute, and the color schemes of their garments is kind of alternating, and one way to see it is like a visual representation of a melody. Here we see another example of the screen being used both to divide between scenes and to stir up interest for us to go to the next scene. We can see 2 people kind of like engaging with each other across the screen. So now if we go across the screen, we can see that in this final scene, the contact between the guests and the ladies become quite intimate. They're holding hands, shoulder backs, and Han Xizai is interestingly in the middle watching. This room is now empty, right? We can notice that as we flip through the scenes, the furnishing gradually reduced and intimacy between the figures intensified. The illustrations change from being descriptive to being more implicit, and the message becomes increasingly ambiguous. Essentially, quoting from an article that I linked below, the artist leads us inside a deep mansion, penetrating layers of screens to unveil the secrets they conceal. So something that's quite interesting to note is that Han Xizai was remembered very differently in the Zheng Shi and Ye Shi. Zheng Shi is official history, whereas Ye Shi is unofficial history. In the Zheng Shi, he is presented as a leading statesman in the Southern Tang court. He was mostly admired for political foresight, literary talent, and outspokenness, whereas his image in the Ye Shi was quite metamorphic, and stories focused on his private life, and his eccentricity was continuously elaborated and exaggerated. One can imagine that this painting probably inspired many textual records of Han Xizai's private life. So one example of a commentary by a famous person is Emperor Huizong's commentary. Emperor Huizong is an emperor in the Song dynasty. And if you remember from my intro, the Song dynasty eventually conquered Southern Tang. So you can imagine his position, right? Like in his commentary, he has to kind of justify his ancestors' conquest of Southern Tang. So his commentary was highly critical towards the Emperor Li Yu, who commissioned this painting. He says, "Isn't it an outrage for Li Yu to have peeped into his subject's private and disreputable life? For a ruler to become interested in his minister's private life is already an error. It is even worse to have it painted and leave the painting to the world. It would have been better to just throw it away immediately after viewing it." And there's a lot of historical irony here, as pointed out from the article that I linked in the video description, because Emperor Huizong, who gave this commentary, was to follow the same path of Li Yu, who he criticizes, right? Huizong was also a gifted artist, and in his reign, the Song dynasty perished. He was actually denounced by the later Chinese as a decadent ruler, and it was thought that his love for the arts contributed to his downfall, much like Li Yu. What's also ironic is that Huizong commented that the painting ought to be destroyed, but he himself kept it in his collection and recorded it in his catalog and left it to the world. But I guess as ironic as Huizong's commentary is, I'm quite thankful for his hypocrisy, because if he had destroyed the painting and hadn't kept it, then today we wouldn't have the chance to peep inside the night entertainments of Xizai. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.